Afternoon, everyone. Perhaps slightly redundant now that we've solved all the issues in the supply chain with those ideas labs. Perhaps we should just all go and enjoy the sunshine. Joking, lock the door, don't let them go. As Chris mentioned, it's good to see that some of you have found the bar already. I assure you, gentlemen, these are just waters, unfortunately. So, as we've heard throughout today already, and we know there's no silver bullets, and the supply chain constraints, challenges, complexities are going to continue on into well into 2022, possibly beyond. I'm not trying to be too depressing, I promise. But creating this new, never normal environment that makes turning up to work every day is just so much fun for you all right now. And so with uncertainty being the only certainty in supply chain right now, it's imperative to explore and utilize existing and new technologies and solutions that enable business continuity, even whilst the industry and supply chains face multiple crises. So joining me on stage, as the end-to-end supply chain is nigh, 3 of the 4 horsemen. We have Tom Cook, Business Transformation Manager, Finished Vehicle Logistics at Nissan North America. We have Anthony Monterio, President of Automotive and COO at Draiver. Welcome. And we have, last and certainly not least, Curtis Rhodes, Executive Vice President, Network Planning at Jack Cooper Transport. Welcome. So let's get straight into things. Tom, I'm going to pick off with you first. We heard earlier from Steve, so he is actually here listening. I now have to prove that I was paying attention. We heard from Steve earlier about Nissan's corporate digital transformation strategy. Obviously, Steve covered inbound, outbound, production, after sales. Perhaps with you right here now, with your specialism in finished vehicle logistics, we can delve a little bit deeper into the evolution of Nissan's outbound logistics tracking and visibility.
Yeah. So certainly, traditionally, as you're aware, we've been spending a lot of time in Excel and a lot of manual type reporting and that kind of thing. Limited visibility. A lot of times, what we're doing is whether internally or externally with our partners, we're emailing, asking questions, and generating reports, running ad hoc reports, having to continuously run a report, make some decision, gather the information, wait for reply, sometimes from different groups. And that's typically kind of in the past what we've done, relying on batch data and that kind of thing overnight. But now, we're starting to see, and I wish I could say we've gotten away from that and things are evolving. They are, that we just kind of scratched the surface, and things are going to very quickly evolve as we go forward in our transformation. But things that we're seeing right now is we're able to have some visibility to some dashboards and some information, that we're able to run these reports and see the information more real time. We'll see it updated more often. We're not having to wait for other groups to reply and communicate, hey, is this information the way we want it? So we're starting to see that kind of come into play a lot more. And I think, I think one of the things that our team's focusing on is it feels a little bit overwhelming and tedious, but we're kind of really digging into our processes and our report making process as well. And really, process is the key. That's really the approach that we're taking. We don't want to support prescribed solutions or throw technology at it. What we're trying to do is look at the process and see how the technology complements that, and make smart decisions about how we move forward and how we do things. How we do things with our internal analytics and our processing. So as long as we stay focused on the process, that's really where I think we're seeing our benefit. Right now we're going through a lot of our reporting processes and identifying where those data sources. And it's kind of a tedious task. We have to go through every analyst and through different departments and dig into, hey, where is that data coming from really that you're using every day? Where's there overlap and waste? And then getting those data sources, access those in the cloud, whether it's just bringing it into a central location or considering building pipelines between other clouds, things like that. So once that we get through that kind of daunting sort of grudge detail of understanding that, I think we're really going to see a rapid evolution of being able to have much more efficient time in our decision-making process or analysis, free up our analysts from doing the monotonous kind of just ad hoc snapshot data reporting and actually doing proactive type analysis and predictive analysis, things like that. So that's going to come very soon. But certainly we're still a ways away and working on that, and we're still relying on the manual scanning and things at the railheads and throughout the process, the manual touch points. That's still there, but it's going to rapidly evolve.
Yeah, excellent. So yeah, the devil is in the detail. You say tedious in terms of the work that has to go into it, but that's ultimately where the opportunities lie. Really understanding the business, really understanding those processes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Great. And Curtis, we've already heard industry-wide that order schedules are significantly reduced. So how are you, as an asset-heavy provider, kind of able to adapt and cope? And in terms of visibility in this reduced window, how are you kind of operating?
So I think the key word for us would be fluid. Every day is different. There's new challenges. We may have some facilities that require a lot of off-site moves. And so you may have resources that are in the yard. You may have resources that typically run local. And now all of a sudden those resources are keeping the plant fluid and make sure that the blue door doesn't get blocked. And there may be other times where those assets, a facility is down. And how do you move those within the network to get them to the place that they need to be? So that's key. We certainly use technology. All of our trucks have ePod, all of our trucks have telemetry, and that's been helpful. And I think for the blue sky scenario, it makes things very clear. But on the exception management, it's not always very clear. On cases where you might be pulling in outside capacity, I think that's where, as an industry, some of that visibility is lost.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting there. And kind of in such times, we talked about the heaps of challenges there, and this is open to the panel. Is there a tendency to actually kind of increase the amount of manual work involved in terms of these processes, just because of the kind of crisis management and management by exception that's increasing at the moment?
Well, certainly from our side, it may be a situation where the customer that you're interacting with may, as an assembly facility, may give you information in the form of a spreadsheet or whatever. So you react with that, and you service the customer, and you keep them going. So in that cases, you do have that come up. Obviously, where possible, we prefer EDI. We prefer transmissions or APIs that are not via email and spreadsheet. But sometimes you do what you need to do to make the material flow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, we've started to take those spreadsheets and convert them into data ourselves, right? So some customers will upload a spreadsheet, and we'll take that spreadsheet, turn it into the delivery, pickup, drop-off, credentials around that, so that we can take that manual process away from humans having to type things into computers.
Yeah, and as an provider offering kind of AI-based and smart solutions, does it surprise you the sort of the level of use of spreadsheets still in the industry?
It's really amazing how antiquated the process is to get an order to move a vehicle from point A to point B, when there's so much data that can be automated that our system relies on it, and our AI will figure out the quickest, fastest, shortest route, time of day, weather, all these things, but it starts manually in a lot of cases, and we're trying to automate that for our customers. And for all of the haulers and all the OEs, all that data just can come in via an API and never have to be put in a spreadsheet, because we'll translate that into trip planning, routing, and optimization.
Yeah, absolutely. Perhaps, but to put a quick show of hands to the audience, who feels here that their organization still relies too heavily on kind of manual processes? Just to get a steer within the group. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, absolutely. So probably about half there, and maybe the wine's kicking in for the rest of you. But yeah, an interesting kind of snapshot there. So kind of how significant are we finding the shift to digital tools since the beginning of the pandemic? Has this been an accelerator for the use of new technology and kind of reviews of these processes and procedures?
I mean, I'll take that one. I mean, the COVID launched what we do. We're a short distance hauler using drivers, kind of like an Uber-ish tool, where drivers will be on a network and they get a job to take a vehicle from A to B. And we really cut our teeth in the box truck industry because you have to drive those, and you can't put 8 of them on a truck. We had to learn patterns of driving from A to B, but COVID hit, and now car dealers in balancing and lot balancing as these vehicles come out of the pipeline aren't coming out consistently. They're coming out in spurts, and they're using services like ours to take small hauls, like get 8 vehicles and just move them over here, or coming out of the supply chain, which is interesting, which has become really popular, is just bring it right to the customer's house. Like, I don't even want it on my lot, just take it to the customer's home. And that's part of the service that kind of born out of this whole internet, the COVID world, using our tools and other tools to get cars delivered through that pipeline.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately, I think from your perspective, Anthony, it sounds like it is, but other gentlemen here, is the goal to remove kind of all manual processes, ultimately? Is that the direction we're heading in? And is that a reality that's going to happen, in the next few years, in the short term?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, I mean, that's the direction we're heading, and that's obviously the ideal goal. Getting completely away from manual is going to take some time, certainly, as you sort of. But I think to get more efficient and effective at what we do, we've got to look and strive every day to remove those manual processes and whatever it makes sense, effectively, efficiently. It's just it affects everything from quality to sustainability. If you can automate and move in that direction, certainly you're just going to get much better and quicker at your decision making and at your processing, and only leave maybe the few essential manual processes that you may absolutely have to have.
Or the exception management. Something happens that's, whether it's a breakdown on a truck or whatever, you're going to have human intervention for some things. Mm-hmm. But if you can keep the manual concentration on things that are the true exceptions, I think that drives out the cost.
Yeah, interesting. And in terms of then visibility, so kind of on a scale of 1 to 10, and because of coming from the different sectors, I want to get kind of your thoughts and, the number, kind of 1 to 10 in terms of how much visibility there is in the finished vehicle logistics network right now. So from kind of plant to dealer or end customer, 1 being sort of no, pitch black, the lights are off, and 10 being, it's too bright actually. So Curtis, as you're next to me, I'm going to pick on you first.
I would say overall, especially normally we might be at a 6. Probably right now we're at about a 4 because there's so much unusual activity in the network.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was going to say, somewhere in the 4 or 5 range. We were talking earlier, the past question about the crisis mode, right, and the need for maybe more manual. You see where, in those times, you see where your blind spots are, and you may not have realized you have. So it sort of exposes some of those areas and weaknesses and say, hey, we've got to develop this a little bit further and get some added visibility to it. Or it could be a case of where the data is there, you're just not accessing it and using it the most effective manner. So, but yeah, I would agree with Curtis. It's right around that range.
Okay, so 4 or 5 so far. Anthony?
Yeah, probably about the same too, because where we see the disconnection is go pick up all these vehicles and move them, and then the fleet of drivers will get there, and 10% of the vehicles aren't there, right? So the data that's coming in is bad data, so you end up with a bunch of dry runs, or you got to swap them out and fulfill that order. So, I mean, the visibility is not great still.
Yeah, so where are some of the darkest spots then? that you kind of, it's not getting above a 5?
I would say where you have handoffs between providers, that's really where the, whether it's data latency, where the data's maybe coming but it's not transmitted, or whether it's something where the latency is because the move happened and then the process isn't because of a barcode scan, it's a back office entry or something like that. That's where whether it's rail unload or whether it's an upfitter or on the plant side we can see delays. So really the handoffs are the issues.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think coming out of our manufacturing process is one area where it's a challenge right now. Just not knowing, whether it's from our plants here or even overseas, not knowing how much volume, the planned volume, are we going to make that planned volume? If there's a part shortage and there's, we don't know, may not know exactly when we're going to receive that part and when we're going to have, the manpower and time based on that to go and finish repairing and then ship them out. So I think there's, different pockets of areas that are real dark that coming out of our right prior to hand over to logistics that we're not have clear visibility on right now. It's a challenge.
Yeah, and are you seeing different areas or similar?
Yeah, I mean, so we take in a lot of data via APIs, right? And there's so many different systems that talk differently. They call things different names, even though they're the same thing. So there's really no normalization that we've been able to find to smooth it out. So we're kind of writing our own processes to say, that equals this in that system, and we're having kind of a standardized system. But I think until the industry gets better at that, it's still going to be a challenge for us at the end to supply the perfect tool or service.
Yeah. And in terms of like the low-hanging fruit, we just identify some of these darker spots, but they might be more challenging to overcome. So again, open to the panel, what's the low-hanging fruit here, where be it existing or new technology can kind of come in and play a role in brightening that supply chain?
I would say from my perspective, that the way I look at it, and again, we're taking that process approach look, trying to make a sensible decision. One thing that we're doing is it's forcing us, as we're looking to automate these things and bring in this technology and invest in it, we're looking at our processes. So we're asking our analysts and our teams to actually lay out the process map, process flow, whether it's actual physical process map of the vehicle flow, or it's how you write your report and generate your report. And we're finding in that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit just in that. You can take quick win steps to automate certain steps, whether it's even within Excel or through a Tableau dashboard or something that we may have access that we didn't realize we had, that we can help our analysts do. So I think right now, as we're trying to prepare and develop for the bigger, more sophisticated sort of technologies and things, I still think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in the day-to-day operations. And that's just kind of how I look at it. I got that engineering background, so I like to see the process map and the flow, root cause countermeasure type sort of manufacturing 101 look to it. But I think we're finding a lot of low-hanging fruit, that we're having a lot of value come out of those little quick wins and improvements.
Yeah, absolutely. Curtis, across your networks?
I mean, the easiest thing in my mind would be something where you've got the telemetry in every vehicle, and that takes away all the handshakes and handoffs and data translations and ETL and all that stuff. Now there's one set of truth. It's not up to us to put the telemetry in every unit, though, so it's low-hanging fruit for me, but maybe not so much on the OEM side.
Yeah, I guess therein lies the challenge, where the difference of perspectives of what's easy, what's worth investing in, time and resource as well. So, yeah. And
I completely agree. I think it's getting closer, where the vehicle's going to tell everybody where that vehicle is and where it's moving to, and when it breaks through a geolocation, somebody doesn't have to go back and manually say, hey, that vehicle was dropped off. The vehicle says, I just got dropped off, and here I am, right? So, I think we'll get closer to that. We're not quite there, but I see it going that way.
Yeah, and in terms of that sort of telemetry, telematics, why isn't there more utilization of that from your perspective? I'm looking at you, Curtis. Sorry.
I think on one OEM side, it has to do with the telemetry is there, but it's not turned on. They're saving that for the customer. I think in other instances, it's getting closer, but it's not fully implemented at this point. But having that telemetry, I think would, the car should say, hey, I'm landed, I'm in this lot, I know that this lot's released, I know that I've left the yard outgated, and then it can in turn inform the dealer or the final customer. And we've got systems that do that, but it seemed like it would be a lot more integrated if you wouldn't be dependent upon each carrier's individual systems and processes to make that communication.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tom, from your perspective, I know you've been doing some work on the telematics of the vehicles themselves rather than the trucks. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of this project and how that's evolving?
Yeah. So typically, just to add to what Kurt was saying, I think typically a lot of the telematics and development's been more the end customer focused features and things like that. And I think logistics, we need to have much of a louder voice in that development process, internally, to maximize the value of telematics throughout our processes as well. So yeah, I mean, from my perspective, we're right now, some of the projects that I'm working on is we're running different trials right now on different models, and we're trying to overlay the data that we're receiving from the vehicle with our processes and see where that data lies within our key milestones of our process, right? The cars key off and load on a truck, but then that truck is gonna yard exit at some point on the truck. Things like that, those critical points we're reviewing now what visibility we have and where we need to go going forward. I know internally I'm supporting some projects right now on GPS location-based type use cases and things like that internally. I'm trying to work cross-functionally, to basically clarify the benefit, right, for logistics and bring clarity to that, and also visibility within all of Nissan of where the value is from a logistics perspective. And we're finding a lot of it's crossing over right into sales and quality areas too from the plant and things like that. So those are some of the things right now that I'm digging into and working on.
Yeah, interesting there. And in terms of obviously Nissan, established player, legacy systems, that's a big challenge we know. Anthony, from a provider's perspective, do legacy systems in place cause a barrier for you to be able to optimize, to create efficient flows?
Well, so if the legacy system can still provide a flow of data, but it tends to be report-based, right? It's not necessarily a real-time flow of data. It's here's the batch of information, and then it's already historical at that point, right? So now you have to analyze it from a historical perspective to move it forward to say what's the predictability of what has to move and where they need to move and things like that. So there is some barrier there, and the closer it gets to real, imagine a cloud that just has all the data flowing up into it, and you can pull it down and use it for all of your predictive analytics of how to optimize vehicle movement all the way from the beginning to the end, all the way into the customer's driveway with visibility.
And Curtis, from your perspective, again, in a provider's perspective, is it a barrier, or is it something easy to kind of work with, those legacy systems, and perhaps even Jack Cooper's own kind of legacy systems in place?
Yeah, so we do optimization within our network, and it happens in a real-time way in driver routing. So we do it in that manner to make sure that we're effectively moving the 1,100 drivers around to the right place next. Beyond that, I think that there are some opportunities for better visibility on the local side. We're beginning to provide that to our customers in terms of the data that we have in real time. And it is a bit of a change in mentality. Is, are you looking at a morning report that's got a certain set of numbers, or are you looking at it in real time? And if you're looking at it in real time, I may say, oh, the inventory is 300, but he's looking at it 20 minutes later and it's 350 or whatever. And so, you almost still need both, having that snapshot sort of baseline where things are at, and then also have the real-time visibility as to what's been shipped, what's been received.
Absolutely. Let's change the conversation slightly and talk about quality. So we know with record low inventories, every vehicle counts at the moment. So any kind of additional dwell time or time that's preventing that sale sort of taking place is critical. Are we seeing a different approach to vehicle damage in terms of visibility, transparency, and the process behind there? I'll start with you, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously every unit is important right now, so getting visibility to what that damage is and to make sure it doesn't sit, and have a plan to remediate is extremely important from that standpoint. So, we want to have visibility to it and then make the decision. It may make sense to, maybe instead of bringing it to a vehicle processing center for repair, it may even be better off going to the dealer. They may have a better chance of getting the service part and that quicker. But yeah, I think absolutely. I think of course minimizing those damages is number one, and eliminating them is important. But when we have visibility to that, we can take action quicker on those damages. So that's where some of the information, information from our partners, as well as from combined with potential data from the vehicle itself, you can gain some additional visibility to that condition of the vehicle, and then already have a plan in place to get it remedied as soon as possible. Things like automated, and there's different pieces of that, right? Like things like just the automated claim system now, some implementing visual systems to where you could actually take a picture, generate the estimate, repair, and actually begin that repair process, get the claims process moving to where you got the authority to repair, and then actually begin ordering the part quicker. That can help you get ahead of it a little bit, so these vehicles aren't sitting a long time, and actually getting to the customer quicker. But then, of course, the more predictive piece is the most important part of that, I think, too, is in figuring out how to root cause and eliminate these damages.
Yeah, absolutely. And Curtis, obviously, transporting the vehicles to the dealerships, that kind of handover, that critical point, has that changed?
Yeah, we've definitely seen changes within the industry. We see that there are build shy programs out there, so the vehicle may be moved more now in the outbound flow than what it has been. Every time you touch it, that's a risk. We've seen instances when we deliver a vehicle, instead of that one person coming out, sometimes now it's multiple people coming out to inspect it. So I think the dealers are being much more rigorous about their inspection, and many more of these units are now sold. So the claims pressure is certainly there. I love the idea of using something in terms of a photo inspection. Black Widows outside, that's wonderful. It's not subjective. Today all those inspections, every single time you have a different provider, that's a handoff. And we've talked about how critical driver capacity is. Do we really want a driver spending 10 minutes on every car doing inspection to cover themselves, when in reality we want them to move the car? So I love the idea of using technology to help have a non-subjective inspection and drive the issue back to where it's caused. Today there's a lot of finger pointing between the various points in the chain. Let's clean that up and make it real.
Absolutely. And Anthony, kind of how are you tackling that and kind of making that kind of vehicle inspection process kind of optimized, reducing that those additional checks just to kind of cover oneself?
So all of the drivers have to provide an inspection, right? So that, and it does take more time, right? That creates a longer trip time because they have to do the full walk around the odometer and everything and inspect it for damage. But some things along the supply chain on the dwell side that we've gotten involved in recently is a manufacturer or even a dealer might say, hey, I've got these 3 vehicles that there's damage and I need to get them repaired quickly. I don't want to wait for a hauler. I need you here in 2 hours to get the vehicle and move it so I can continue to move that vehicle through this dwell area. So there's all these little pieces that are starting to come out of this supply chain stranglehold because everything needs to move faster and I can't wait 4 days to move 5 cars. I need you to come and move 5 cars today. And that's kind of where part of our business really grew in the last year.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and Curtis, earlier you mentioned vehicle sales are taking place kind of higher up the pipeline, as it were. In Europe, there's a higher balance of build to order kind of versus the US. But with inventories as they are, dealers selling further and further up the pipeline, do you foresee this kind of model being a long-term model, or we sort of revert back to the dealer lots of the good old days?
So that's a great question. You've got a younger generation that is perfectly fine with ordering everything online, and Amazon it shows up. So that would lead you to believe, hey, this is probably here to stay, and it's going to get more and more. On the other hand, Americans, I think in general, still like the instant gratification of going out, looking at that car, and then walking away with it. So I think some of it's generational, but I think over time we'll see a higher and higher percentage of build to order instead of build to inventory.
And does this amplify a need for greater visibility, this kind of build to order and I guess a customer experience as well?
Yep, they will want to know where it's at. They want to know when it's going to get there, and see every bit of the milestone. And as we had in our work stream, I think that the right way to do that isn't to transmit an ETA exact date and time for every bit, but take that window and make it narrow and narrower as it gets closer and closer to final delivery. That ETA gets more and more accurate.
Yeah. And Anthony, is it fair to say that there's more visibility in the used car market compared to the new car market right now?
I believe so. We work closely with what I call the used car OEs, where they're doing this vehicle acquisition, reconditioning them, bringing them through the reconditioning process. And those vehicles, in most cases, are sold before it comes out the factory, which is the take it apart, put it back together, clean it up. And those vehicles are going directly into the customer's driveway. So that visibility, there's one partner we work with that literally will show the customer going through the recon process with cameras and milestones of, hey, your vehicle will be done in 2 days, 24 hours. It got picked up. It's on the way. Your driver's at your doorstep, right? So, I don't know if we ever get there on new cars, but right now it's happening in used cars. And, you take Carvana and Vroom, and they're a small piece of the whole entire marketplace. But the reality is that someone can press a button and a car can show up in your driveway. So there's consumer demand for it. What is the appetite? It's not 100%, but who knows what it will be in 5, 10, 15 years. I know for sure, based on our business, that in the past 2 years, it's grown 10x, right? Because we're our growth trajectory of putting cars in driveways were not what it was before COVID.
Yeah, interesting. So clearly that's changing some of the models and changing some of the links in the supply chain. Are we seeing real physical changes? Intermediary stops. Is that kind of whole process and setup changing?
I think it's going to have to. I think that that getting visibility, the more visibility we have, and that we see that they're changing since COVID is, or even before that, the need for it we're continuously looking at that and having to optimize, right? Continuously optimize. So, understanding where those kind of, how can we, we mentioned before the Georgia Tech study that we've been doing, looking at hubs and things like that to change sort of those intermediate handover points to be more effective and more efficient. Not only to support, of course, support the end customer, but also support the trucking industry as well. I think either eliminating those or really just optimizing those intermediate changes and stops is going to have to happen, and we'll see more and more of that.
Some nodding heads there, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, agreed, right? I think these distribution centers get bigger, and the dealer footprint gets a little smaller, right? Do I need 30 acres of land, or do I need 10, where I have all my major models that people that do want to come and test drive it and buy out of inventory still can? But from a distribution center, how much easier it is to just have them all in a centralized place that can be moved into the driveway is much easier.
That'll also probably drive additional changes with respect to, where is that PDI done? If that unit goes ultimately from the factory to the driveway, where's the PDI done? Probably at that DC.
That's correct.
Yeah, and I guess the million-dollar question, crystal ball moment is, is this cyclical, or is this a long-term change, a sustained change? Or do you think it's something that will revert back to kind of in time, and we'll actually look back and say, hey, remember when we didn't have those intermediary stops, and now it's actually more efficient to have those in place and outsource that and this process. Yeah, million-dollar question, no pressure.
Tough crystal ball right there, for sure.
So, asked about the sort of the long-term sustained challenge. We've got three different stakeholders here, and there are certainly more in the supply chain as well, kind of all working to improve visibility. With everyone, and someone put it very eloquently earlier, everyone has their own sort of capital interests. So self-serving, ultimately. Is there a danger that everyone's working on different tangents in terms of improving visibility, working with different technologies, that we're all roughly moving in the same direction, but it's not in a straight line? Is that a challenge, or is it a healthy thing that there's different options and different technologies taking place or being put into place?
I would say at a minimum, you need to have sort of the AIG standard of here's the format of the data that needs to be exchanged. At a minimum, you need that. Otherwise, there's so much friction between one carrier handing it to another carrier, and you lose visibility without the ability to exchange data fairly seamlessly. So you need at least standards, if not a clearinghouse to go through on that information.
And if you look at some of the ultimate goals that I think everybody's trying to get to, is a long hauler is going to bring a vehicle to a location and drop it off. A short hauler like us is going to do a white glove delivery. So we need to rendezvous at a specific time to make that efficient, right? So we need to make sure that we know when that vehicle is going to be there, so we can intercept that final mile and take that vehicle into the driveway. So unless we start sharing that data, we won't know. We're going to have 3 days of dwell time of a vehicle sitting in a lot that it doesn't need to sit in.
And yeah, Tom, I guess the question for you, sort of building on that, is how much resource do you put onto creating those internal systems and utilization or development of technology, and how much do you kind of outsource of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's pros and cons to both of it, right? I think it's good to have that innovation, right? If a lot of people are looking at different solutions and looking at different options and ideas, you're really driving that innovation and that incentive to innovate and create new things. Right now, we've got this in this time right now for finished vehicle logistics, which has been moving so slowly for so years as far as change goes. Now we're really changing that opportunity to really do some different things. But again, at the same time too, we've got to keep talking and collaborate as far as where can we set those guidelines, and as OEMs, where can we set general guidelines and not veer too far off, and recognize where the value is to work together on some things as well. So I see the pros and cons of both of that.
Yeah, and you say there, we're on the precipice of, many sort of new doors opening, having moved along relatively slowly sort of to date. Is the industry kind of ready for that? Is the industry ready to kind of grasp those opportunities? Or is it sort of going to be, kind of a bit of a Wild West in terms of, which direction we kind of go in?
I think ultimately the customer is going to force it. Whether we do it, collaboratively through a standard, or whether it's a VHS beta, I think ultimately the customer, with the Amazon paradigm, although it's not the same thing, perception is reality, and we'll be forced to improve. And it'll happen how it happens, but I think it's got to happen.
Yeah, it's a consumer-driven, product right now. To have that immediate or semi-immediate, can I order something on the internet that's going to show up on my doorstep? Can I have someone come pick my car up and have it serviced so I don't have to go there? That type of service, the consumers are driving it, and consumers are actually saying, I'll pay for it. My time's valuable. I need meetings to go to. I don't want to have to go to the dealership and pick up a car. And a percentage, again, I have a lot of friends that are dealers, been in the business a long time. Their showrooms are slammed. The problem is right now, they don't have cars, but there's still people that want to go to those showrooms. So how fast it changes, and will it ever be 100%? Again, who's got the crystal ball?
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's going to be painful at times, certainly, but at the end of the day, we'll have to keep watching what the customer needs and wants, and how we can deliver and meet those expectations.
Someone mentioned earlier in one of the sessions about kind of load sharing being one of the best opportunities, not necessarily the easiest, but one of the best opportunities to kind of create efficiencies in the vehicle supply chain. Is visibility, improved visibility, really at the key to delivering this and making this happen, whether it be from a data sharing context, or just understanding where the products are and where they're going to be delivered and when?
I think from the load sharing side, the VDC is more about aggregating those locally, and that communication can take place locally. I think on the filling empty miles portion of load sharing, that's one of the reasons I'm here, is to meet with other large carriers and see, okay, where's your empty miles, where's mine? It's kind of the old school way of doing it, but with capacity at the crunch that it is, you have to find ways to get that done until such time as we can share it. Because I don't know that every carrier wants to share with every other carrier, where they're loaded and where they're not, for competitive reasons. But certainly we need to work together as a group to become more efficient for both ourselves and the customer.
I think the visibility is key because as a first step, if you have the improved visibility and you have that data, then various groups and organizations can go back and take that data and generate a business case, or clarify the need, clarify the benefit, potentially see more clearly where that ROI is, because that's where things are going to change, right? If everybody can see clearly, hey, this is going to be a benefit to me, in my business and what I do, and also benefit to you. But the first step is getting the visibility is going to be the first step to that. So I think once we have that improved, then the potential for more clear business cases are going to come to the surface.
Yeah. So we're coming pretty close to the end, but I do want to just see if the audience has any questions. So I've got my final few questions here, but do raise your hands if there's something that you want to ask. So if we're having this discussion in a year's time, which I hope we are, how different will this discussion be, and what will have changed? When we talk about visibility, the technology we're using, the goals we're working towards.
It's going to continue to get more and more real time. The customer is going to continue to get more and more visibility. That's going to drive more demands from their side, because their perception is the reality.
Good answer. Okay. So let's go into the final thoughts and comments, kind of the direction we're heading. Because you've kind of given us your thoughts, but in terms of visibility, how bright is the future? And final kind of comments to the audience here.
From our perspective, the pipeline of where the vehicle's coming through, visibility is less important to us, but to the customer it's very important because they want to know when their car is going to be there, because they have to be there, and it's an experience that they're going to have. So the visibility of where people are, just like where cars are, is super important to us, and our AI can never learn unless we know where every single driver is, what their skill set is, and what they're doing at that particular time, and how much time they have left to do something else. So learning all of that makes a lot of efficiencies, and it can transfer down to the entire process. So I think it's just going to keep growing. Machines are going to learn faster of how to build logistics. AI is a buzzword, but it's real. It can optimize processes very, very finely, that it will learn a repetitive process and make it way better, right? And we won't have to sit here and think, what's the best load, what's the best route, who's the best driver? It's just going to go, here's your plan for the day, change it if you want to. And I think that's kind of, in a year from now, we're not going to be there. In 2, we probably will.
Yeah. So everyone's days are numbered. Your jobs are under pressure. So, and Tom, final thoughts.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think again, 1 year. I wish I could say things would be dramatically different, but I think that just that there's such a focus now on being more efficient and effective at what you do, eliminating waste from your process. Staying focused on that and continuing to make those little improvements. I think just those incremental improvements, even if it seems very small, just the tiniest, smallest incremental improvement every day is going to add up over the course of a year, and you're going to have significant change in improvement. So if we just stay focused on kind of that continuous improvement, driving those inefficiencies, and the data is going to help us clarify where those problems are. Definitely the future's definitely very, very bright.
Great. Well, that's a perfect note to end on. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. A round of applause, please, for our esteemed colleagues up here.
What do nearly half of new vehicles sold in North America have in common? They arrived with the help of ICL. ICL Systems provides a fully managed, web-native solution that gives auto manufacturers end-to-end visibility of their finished vehicle supply chain, from manufacturing plant to dealership, and everywhere in between. Managing communication with multiple trading partners is costly and complex. With ICL, OEMs can connect with all of their supply chain partners in one place. Tracking begins when a production order is placed, continues through all modes of transport, and every step along the way, with updates about pre-delivery inspections, dealer trades, dwell time, order status, and more. ETA to final delivery is continuously updated and shared with supply chain partners and stakeholders. And our invoice audit system ensures OEMs pay for the right work, at the right time, at the right rate, to the right vendor. Ready to maximize performance, savings, reliability, and efficiency? Contact ICL today.
At Trinity Rail, we are committed to delivering goods for the good of all. Our products and services play an important role in delivering essential goods that keep the economy moving and enrich the lives of people and communities throughout North America. As the premier provider of rail transportation products and services, we provide the innovative solutions and trusted expertise you need in today's challenging business environment. No matter what your business requires, we're here for you. Learn more at trinityrail.com.
Hyundai Glovis's mission is to make the world better connected by maximizing customer value. Every day, we are making the world an ever smaller place and increasing customer value. Your value chain partner. This is